of assets that qualify you or disqualify you. Now, what I will say is that if you do need long-term care insurance and you have assets above the amounts shown here, you are eligible for coverage. However, they will put a lien against your property. They'll either take the money from your accounts or they'll place a lien against your home. So what's important to note about that is that if you have assets and you choose to go the government support route and have, you spend down all of your money, you still have your home, that's certainly an option that a lot of people use, but just be aware that the government will put a lien on that property, and it will affect, what you leave to your heirs. So family support, if you want to go the family support route, there's some really important considerations here. You need to talk with your family about what your wishes are. Will you move in with them? Will they move in with you? And what are some of the triggers? Some of the triggers that are important are, gosh, when I don't feel comfortable driving anymore. Perhaps that's a time when I need to start thinking about having somebody start helping me run my errands, or when I forget to leave the stove, when I forget I'm cooking, I leave the stove on and I almost burn the house down. The fire department has to come put it out. That's a trigger. Whatever triggers, likely you've had some experience with people who have started to, at the end of life and started to decline, and you know what those are. But they're important to just talk about with your family if indeed that's the direction you want to go with handling your long-term care need. One thing I'd really like to point out here is whoever's going to be responsible for helping you, who are the family members who are doing that, it's really critical to make sure that they have the proper legal authority to be able to do that. And by that I mean your powers of attorneys need to be in place. So related to that, the family support, put this slide up here about the sandwich generation. So depending on, if you're looking at the long-term care for yourself or if you're looking at the long-term care for your parent. And so, obviously you all know us here, Jeanette and Jim and myself, and we all, we're in different generations. So, the conversation about having family support, do you want to have your kids help you? Do you want to do long-term care? Those are questions that, we're posing for, for like Jim, people who are in that arena. Jeanette and myself, we've both been having a lot of discussion here and have had some experience about, well, gosh, what happens, my mom, she lives alone. What happens if something happens to her? What are her wishes? Do I have the authority? We've shared with some of you, and Jeanette has given me the thumbs up, the okay to share a little bit about her experience. Her mom recently had a stroke and had some medical issues. And as a result, Jeanette has had to step in and really provide the long-term care for her mom. And at the time when it happened, they unfortunately didn't have the powers of attorney, and they hadn't talked about it beforehand. As far as, what do your finances look like? What are your wishes? And how do we make the most of it? And not impact Jeanette's family so much, but be able to, provide support to her mom. And so there was a lot of interesting discussion that happened around that. And, it's always better to be proactive when dealing with a problem like this. It's because if you talk about it, you identify the issues beforehand, then when something happens, you just, you have your marching orders. You know what to do. You have the paperwork in process. And luckily enough, in Jeanette's situation, they've been able to make it through. She was able to get the powers of attorney in place. I will make a point, though, that it was only because her mom's cognitive ability was there, and she was able to give consent. And the estate planning attorney that helped us out, I'll mention it, was Dino. Some of you have worked with Dino Rufo, and he was wonderful and really helped Jeanette and her family out. But he was able to determine that her mom was of sound mind to delegate those powers, and they were able to do that. Had Jeanette's mom not been able to demonstrate to Dino her sound mental faculties, they would have had a much more difficult road to hoe. So I'll switch the example over to myself as a result of all of the struggles that poor Jeanette and her family have been dealing with and trying to get everything in place with her mom, I've started having the conversation with my mom. And you know, anytime it hits home, it's more real, and that's why Jim and I talked about this topic. And I said, you know, Jim, this is just really something I think it's important. A lot of our clients need to take a look at it and be aware of what the decisions are. We're not advocating necessarily long-term care insurance, just an awareness of the topic. And of course, Jim was very supportive and definitely on board with the discussion. The discussions I'm having with my mom are about, you know, Mom, what are your wishes? You know, if you want to come live with me, you know, I'm going to charge you rent. No, I'm just joking. But there is a financial aspect to it, right? You know, and do I need to make room in my budget to be able to do this, or is there going to be some kind of offset? You know, she's going to be able to continue to help me. You know, in a lot of cases, it's fine. The finances aren't the issue. It's more the impact of time, right? You know, if both parents work, you know, how are you going to have time to be able to care for an aging parent? You know, that's where the adult day care comes in, those kinds of things. But, you know, there's options, and again, talking about it in a proactive place, whether you be the one talking about your own care or you being the child and concerned about a parent, it's an important topic to just have some forethought about. So we'll move into long-term care insurance. Kind of start with some pros and cons. Of course, this is a very short list. It's nowhere near comprehensive, but you know, it captures the essence. You know, pros, you know, you have choice in care. You're able to maintain independence a little bit longer. You have peace of mind. You protect your assets. Some cons, it's expensive. And like any insurance, you know, it's something you buy and you hope that you never use. Here are some reasons in a recent study that I came across here recently about why people choose to go the insurance route. For people age under 65, they want to avoid using their income. They want to protect assets, basically. 39% of people don't want to be dependent on others and impose on others. And then, you know, a smaller portion, but still a significant 21% of people under age 65 want to make sure that they have adequate choices on what type of care they're going to go and what kind of facility they're going to live in. I won't run through all of them, but, you know, I just thought, well, gosh, that's an interesting way to look at it. It seems that people age 65 to 74 are the ones who are most concerned about becoming dependent on others, and as well as people age 75 and older. Long-term care insurance, there's some benefits to it. The insurance is partially tax deductible. What we have here is that, you know, if, you know, depending on age, how much of the premium may qualify as a medical expense. So what that means is, you know, if you itemize your deductions on your federal tax return, you have the Form A that you file, you can claim the premiums as a medical expense. Of course, medical expenses are subject to the 7.5% floor of your adjusted gross income, but that's certainly, you know, it's a benefit, and it's definitely a piece of the puzzle when you're considering whether you want to go the insurance route or not. I should just, before I leave that, I do need to make a point that some policies are eligible for this deduction and some are not. So I can definitely speak about that if anybody has questions about that, but that's an important point to know. This slide, I apologize that it's so busy and there's a lot of information. What I want to point out about policy comparisons is that policies, unlike auto insurance or homeowners insurance, that are pretty standard, it's just a matter of level of coverage, but they have, you know, the same types of, you know, for auto, public liability, public damages, comprehension, collision types of things. You know, for your homeowners policy, it's the dwelling, outside buildings, you know, personal property, those kinds of things. For long-term care, policies can vary greatly, and they're often difficult to compare side by side. so there are some, standard elements that, we want to take a look at that are able to, we're able to compare. So the elimination period, is it going to be 0 to 100 days, 90 days, 30 to 90 days? You can get upwards of a couple years out for your elimination period. The important point to note with that is that, if you remember at the beginning of the slide, I said, if you think you're going to need the care, how do you want to handle it? And you have those 4 ways. It was government support, self-insure or family, insurance, and then a combination of any of the above. So that's the point I want to make here, is that just because you get long-term care insurance, I mentioned it's expensive, there are a lot of things that you can do to really reduce the cost of the insurance by having, for example, a longer elimination period. If you want to say, I want a policy that is kind of like going to basically cover the situation where, I can't handle it anymore, or what is my portfolio support? That's kind of where we can come in and help you fine-tune what it is you might need in terms of your long-term care policy. But you can really tailor it. You can have a deluxe policy that covers everything from head to toe, or you can have a bare bones policy that really just protects, for example, a spouse and keeps you from running out of money. So really, just to kind of summarize, what are the key decisions that you need to make is, do you think you will need it? Gets back to the probabilities and, how long you think you're going to live, what's your medical history. If you do think you're going to need it, how do you want to handle it? Are you comfortable with family supporting, and do you feel like your assets are adequate to support that and not put a drain on your financial situation? Certainly something we can help you answer. We can do some modeling, take a look at that for you. We are working diligently to establish relationships with long-term care insurance. There's a variety of different policy options that have come out in the last year. Long-term care insurance has been a big topic in our financial planning world. Jim and I have been reading articles about, underwriting and have a good handle on why the policies have increased significantly in the last couple of years. Has a lot to do with the assumptions they put into the policy. The underwriters, people who are providing the insurance, what kind of assumptions are they making, and they've been off, needless to say, and so they're adjusting those, and as a result, we're seeing increases in the policy prices. And then, the last point we'd make is that, we're here to help you make a decision that's right for you, and if you have questions about this, we want to be supportive in providing information. So that basically concludes my portion of the presentation. I'm going to take a look at questions, see if we have any questions from the audience. And let's see, I don't see any additional questions. So Jim, do you have any concluding comments you want to offer in support of the long-term care? Any other things to say to our clients today before we conclude?
No, I don't think so. Well, I'll just, as always, you have any questions or concerns or anything you want to run by us, give us a call. We're here for you.
All right.
Thank you for attending today.
Yep, thank you all very much.